Hello, everybody. Today we are here for a new interview for BugVision newsletter. Today I'm glad to have Robert Shearer from Cropwalk and Croptalk. So hello, Robert. How are you doing today?
Very well, Sebastian. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate this. It's fun.
That's good to have you. As usual, we'll start with the question about your background and what brings you there at Cropwalk and Croptalk right now.
Sure. I guess I'll give you more of the background on Cropwalk than myself. I guess I'll start with myself. I studied botany and worked on organic farms, mostly in the cannabis industry, before moving towards consulting full-time a few years ago, which was something I'd done, part-time through college at Humboldt State University. But with Cropwalk, I joined the team about a year ago, about 9 months ago. And, the vision that Charlie McKenzie put together for Cropwalk is great. The vision is that it's for growers and by growers. And that's great because really all of us were in commercial production before we were consulting. So that really rings true with us, is that, we understand the challenges and the pain points that typical growers face, not just in cannabis, but in floriculture and working with other crops as well. So we've got a great board of advisors as well that helps with cropping systems or pressures that we're unfamiliar with or want to have second, third, fourth, fifth opinions on. So, I think what really ties us together is that we all saw this typical consultant grower interaction as growers, and an IPM specialist would come to the grow and spend a couple hours on site, and then they would provide like a cookie cutter plan and some products out of a catalog as a prescription to all the problems. And we just never really felt like this was the right approach. We all had the same view of it. We all loved IPM to begin with, and it just didn't. It seems like such an integral part of production for us. So, we decided we want to take a more personalized approach and develop something that's highly customized to all of the deliverables and taking the time to get to the root causes of problems and risks rather than just, pushing that one size fits all approach. So, start clean, stay clean means like being ahead of whatever the developing problems are. So avoiding IPM crisis mode. I feel like a lot of growers, mostly when I say that, I speak to the cannabis industry. Too often that there's growers waiting until they're in crisis mode to really take the time and the energy to implement a really strong IPM plan. So crisis mode is too often.
Yeah, but they also have a lot in a plate, so that's like they have to wear so many hats, so that's usually difficult. So yeah, like you describe most of like the idea behind what you're doing at Cropwalk, and also what you have is that channel called Croptalk. So can you tell us just like a couple, like 1 or 2 minutes about it, like what you're doing? Like I kind of understand that there are different kind of talks. Like some are led by Charlie, some are led by yourself, and then some are led by Kyle Barnett. So that's so. Yeah, just explain us a little bit, because maybe the people will be knowing what you will say right now, which kind of topics and talks are better for them, or
Sure,
whatever.
Yeah, we have multiple series under the Croptalk Media umbrella. We're producing mostly podcasts still. We've done approaching or maybe just past 120 at this point. And there's those 3 really active series, which is Leaders Talk Crops, which is Charlie McKenzie. And he's talking to, mostly people who are on the farm with their hands in the soil, the either the lead growers or the executives, the people making the business decisions, making important operational decisions. I do Crop Care Convos is my show, and I like to spend most of my time with academics trying to break down that knowledge silo, to make the research that's done and then put into these peer-reviewed journals a little bit more accessible to the people, try and format it in a way that's a little bit more accessible and understanding for people who are trying to put these things into practice, not just IPM for either of us, for Charlie, myself, or Kyle. These are pretty broad across agriculture and horticulture, the different kinds of cropping systems that we're talking to people involved with. Kyle Talks Ag Tech, and he's talking to leaders in the industry of agricultural technology, hydroponics, vertical farming, and he's actually spoken to people pretty far across the globe. I think Charlie and I have stuck to North America. Kyle's reaching out pretty far and consistently releasing some great material. I'm really proud of both of them. I think they're both doing great stuff. And while I've got another second on the airtime here, I want to say, like, we are thinking about who can be some other niche hosts to cover topics. So, if there's anybody who thinks they might be interested in trying to do something like this, we have some plans to move it forward with new niche hosts, where we can provide the production service to people at a cost. It's a service that we provide. There's actually about 101 steps to producing a podcast. I'm sure you can imagine what some of them are.
Oh, yeah.
Just making a video like this. So we do all of that all the way through, from post-production to marketing for people, and they'd be under a Crop Talk umbrella. We're just about ready to roll that out as a service offering to actually give people this platform to discuss their niche areas of expertise.
That's great. So coming back to the topic we'll talk about today. So we decided together to talk about what would a solid IPM plan look like for the Cropwalk crew. So yeah, can you detail that a little bit, like all the different steps and what is really important in an IPM plan, and how you build it?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, to answer this, I opened up an IPM plan that we are currently customizing for a client. And I figured, of course, I won't read it to you. That would not only take a couple of hours, but violates our non-disclosure agreement. But I can review these topics, and I want to discuss kind of like what's in it a little bit here. I guess before I even get into like what I think's in an IPM plan, we commonly say that an IPM plan integrates more than just control methods, but that it integrates the IPM plan itself into the entire operation. So that an IPM plan should be cross-referenced in your cultivation SOPs, in your quality management systems. There should be training requirements, sanitation protocols referenced in it, and so on. Even business plans should be referencing your IPM plan. If there's any kind of capital raise or partnerships that you're trying to advance where you're sharing business plans with it. We consider really all of those aspects, getting out of just the technical expertise of applied entomology. There's more to IPM, and we consider that in a plan. So I'm using the word plan. Another, I guess, detail to it is that really plans are based on hypotheses. They're kind of administered before and throughout a series of events, right? Programs are based on results, and they're kind of assessed during and after, right? So an IPM plan itself, we think of as containing multiple programs, and those programs are based on key performance indices that can be measured and quantified to see that you're achieving them. Then those programs are like your scouting programs, different biocontrol programs for each of the biological control agents you've got out there, things like that.
Training program for the scouting people too, or
what's
like
that?
The training program for the scouting people.
Absolutely. Yep. There's a section in there. We always put a section in at the end that even includes a catalog there, so you can list and date it, This should be, I mean, that's what this document is. It's a living document that's going to change over time as you learn more about your pressures, as you learn more about your team, as your different team members and their responsibilities change, and as you know, as you learn how to better do what you're doing. We can customize it so well because of our detailed audit process, but you know, even after spending hundreds of hours before customizing somebody's plan, interacting with them and their facilities and all of their protocols, there's nothing like the growers themselves. They know it inside and out. So no matter how awesome of a plan we pass off, you know, we always encourage it to be revisited often, you know.
Yeah.
So let me just walk through some of the sections here and what an IPM plan would contain. We start off with just IPM principles. You know, this is a training document. We want to be able to, for leadership to be able to hand it to new trainees and to have them digest it. So starting with just some principles, the pest and pathogen triangle, definitions of terms that are going to be used throughout the document, examples of categorized control options, you know, biological, microbial, genetic, cultural controls, behavioral, and all the different examples of them and how they're employed. The second section we put in here is Ipm Team Responsibilities. It's basically like who's who in the zoo, you know? And then there's a place to insert an accountability statement that's unique for them so that they can, as a team, sit down, look at this and insert an accountability statement that they can all agree to and have some buy-in on. Because that's really important, knowing what everybody does, not just knowing what you do, but what is everybody else's role, and how can we create some sort of mechanism. You know, we can suggest mechanisms when we customize something, but we never really, you know, delegate a mechanism, but they do need to be in place. The third section in there is contractor and consultant contact info, just who's relevant to your operation that you might need to, or you know, a assistant manager might have to contact in some sort of emergency, whether it's your genetics provider or your IPM consultant or whomever. Mm-hmm. You know, in that same vein, the next is, oh, it said that contractor, you know, the plumber, the electrician, you know, those are in your cultivation plans as well, but it's good to have them elsewhere. Same for the next two sections, just emergency personnel and locations of emergency response equipment. You're dealing with dangerous chemicals, you're doing some dangerous work, want to make sure every comprehensive plan includes that. Details, and now we're getting into the more technical stuff here with details of all the possible pest and pathogen pressures. So, you know, we classify things into primary, secondary, and tertiary pressures. And of course, those are dynamic classifications. They're going to change over seasons and within a season, they're going to change too. So, you know, the growers and the scouts need to be aware of those dynamic variables. So to that end, what we create here is we build profiles for all of these pests and pathogens, kind of like playing cards on steroids, really. I mean, they've got images of all the different life stages, life cycle descriptions, and drawn out pictures of the life cycle, the target locations of these pests and pathogens at various stages in those life cycles, the different control options, the trap plants, the natural enemies, the optimal conditions, and so on. We really can't, you know, scout effectively. We can't employ control methods unless we understand the pests and pathogens and their ecology, basically. So that's what that section is all about. The next is a scouting plan. And here is where there are tips and tricks to scouting, ways to refine the schedule. The schedule itself, the scouting schedule, we kind of combine it with the preventative treatment schedule. So that's the way that is typically delivered. But in the scouting plan section, it's often different tricks for, often SOPs if they're in place. If not, we can develop those SOPs for scouting on their particular crop. Those are often very specific, you know, to the way that different zones are sectioned and crops organized.
The scouting people needs to be aware of what they are looking at for each crop in terms of pests and pathogens and everything. So
yeah.
That goes in SOPs or list of pests and also when like what I usually see in the greenhouses is that they have sometimes some turnover on the scouting people. So it's difficult to get consistent data coming from the scouting.
That's right. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
There's another section in here on data collection, so we make sure that the next person stepping in line knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this just keeps going on. It's a mouthful. I'll try and keep it short here for you, for everybody that's listening.
No, but keep going. It's interesting.
Hopefully this is useful for folks out there, you know, really whether you're interested in Cropwalk services or not. The idea here is to share this info and to make stuff useful and available to growers out there. You know, we want to empower growers, and at least this is the opportunity to show how we can, you know, further empower folks that we work more directly with. So after the scouting plan is preventative treatment schedule. And then there is like a calendar for all of the prophylactic treatments. Of course, this is going to vary pretty wildly between how you're growing, what you're growing, where you're located. There's so many different variables there. So all we can really advance is what we call a functional framework, which is actually a service we're going to start providing for the 2021 service. It's called an Ipm Functional Framework. Which is we give you about 75% of the IPM plan, enough to get you growing with a hemp crop. It's specific to hemp, anywhere, whether you're outdoors or indoors, anywhere in the country, in North America is what we're speaking to. And from there, we have a scheduled plan to work with growers that we provide that functional framework to over the season so that they can customize it themselves. And that was sort of a response to Corona and, you know, a little bit less service calls because people might not want us coming in, or, and it's also just a cheaper way that we can, a more affordable way that we can provide solid plans to people without going in there and doing an audit ourselves. There's nothing like auditing their processes first, but anyways, I digress. That's the functional framework, and the preventative treatment schedule is a big part of that, is like, how can you prevent problems? The next section in our IPM plans are thresholds and curative actions. So just what are the action thresholds? How do you avoid economic injury levels and what they look like, quantifying them? And what are the prophylactic treatments, your response measures? You know, you never want to be reacting, you always want to be responding. So this is where those are outlined. So then the next section is details of all your biological control agents, so BCAs, and those are profiles again, just like we did with pests and pathogens. You know, just knowing the ecology of these animals is very useful. The next section is biosecurity protocols. So this is sanitation SOPs. This is cultural controls that are specific to administering the plan and whatever its programs are. So all the way down to best practices for walking throughout the crop, just moving throughout the different zones in the day-to-day operation. And in this biosecurity section also is references to cultivation practices that influence IPM outcomes. So, excuse me. A lot of the times there's a separation of cultivation SOPs from IPM, and really these things need to be, you know, tightly married. So this is just an opportunity to cite those SOPs explicitly and list how they influence IPM outcomes. Again, this is for training purposes, so somebody can pick this up and see, oh, well, here's how these things are connected, and so we can refer back to this, you know. The next section in there is communication plans. Just, you know, we've listed who's who in the zoo. We've already talked about what the accountability is and who's responsible for what. But this is what are the internal communication plans? How are people expected to get in touch with one another? Is it through some sort of formal reporting mechanism? Are texts preferred? Do you want me to call you on WhatsApp? How am I going to get you the quickest? And what's the most priority things to communicate with somebody about? When should I call the manager off hours? You know?
Yeah, just being efficient in communication.
Yeah, right. And beyond that, IPM, like I mentioned in the beginning, it's more than just an internal thing. It's external communication. We want to be able to talk to other people about IPM outside of our day-to-day business. So we include speaking points for communicating the benefits of using IPM. The benefits are like worker safety, product quality, environmental protection, and so on. So we want to talk to those. We want to talk to various stakeholders really about those as efficiently as possible, like regulatory agencies, the general public and consumers, the media, whoever your sellers and distributors are, so they can understand the value that's added because you're using IPM to avoid the chemical control options that are too readily dependent upon in other sectors of our industries. So really there's untapped marketing potential for commercial IPM practitioners is the takeaway message. And that's something that's, we in growing years here, in future years, we hope to be able to work with our clients to, I want to say, exploit really this potential to the maximum possible.
Yeah, or maybe building a kind of label, like production label or production, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're reading my mind. The next section we put in here is health and safety information. This is where there are material safety data sheets for everything that you're coming in contact with. It's an opportunity to reference whatever your health and safety plan is. Hopefully you have one in place for when OSHA comes a knocking. This is where those documents are married and cross-referenced. The next section under that is record keeping practices. So in here we've got SOPs for data collection, storage, and interpretation. So to make sure that we're collecting just the valuable data points and not too many of them. Like you said, the grower's time is so valuable. So when we're asking to collect data, most people don't even want to hear it. So
yeah, like and like most of the growers, they like so much they love their plants. They love to be in the greenhouse. They love to be and they want to spend as much time in the greenhouse and no time in the office. So it has to be in a way that is useful but doesn't create any any extra work or any difficulties. So that's a challenge.
Yep. If the operation is at the scale that it can afford it, we would always suggest for high value crops to have an IPM director or a manager of IPM, somebody whose job it is all day, every day to be thinking about IPM. If you can afford it, it's like having a sheriff, once your county can afford to have a sheriff in place, it's usually a good thing to have.
Yeah.
So what else do we put in there? This is a SOP for the maintenance of a pesticide application log, just notes on where that application log can be found, so there's never any questions. The next section is additional relevant SOPs. So whatever wasn't referenced in there, this is the chance to make sure you get it out there. Phytosanitary inspection protocols, pesticide mixing, how to handle sticky cards. You think of it, if it's IPM or biosecurity related, it should probably have an SOP so everybody's doing it the same way every time, and so that you can train people on such. After that is just supplemental documents. There might be documents that your company didn't produce, but are valuable. Just reference them in there and attach them to this. And the last section in there is something you asked about right from the beginning, Sebastian, super important. It's the training log. Who has looked at this document? When were any changes made to this document? Because those should be happening too. This is a place to take note of those, and who was trained around it when.
Yeah.
So that's a mouthful. It's like 17 sections. It comes out to often over 200 pages. It's a big document. Most people don't think of that with an IPM plan. I mean, what in there kind of surprised you, Sebastian? Was there anything in there you'd never thought of to be in an IPM plan?
No, but what I really like is the level of detail and how the way you're doing it. It's step, every step, and that you cannot miss anything. Especially if you have the chance to get in the greenhouse and see how it works and ask the right question and fill up your audit, then if the grower like gets everything what's in your report in his mind, then he's getting more efficient at what he's doing in terms of IPM. Like another thing I really liked, I've seen it on so maybe you can share a picture of that, is that kind of the flower graph that tells you in which section you are good, in which section you can get better, and like you are kind of assessing the different questions. I don't know if you have.
Sure. I think what you're thinking about is our risk assessment scorecard.
Yes, exactly.
Right. That's part of the product of our audit. So if you just give me a minute to digress a bit, but the way that we can customize all of this is by carrying out a very comprehensive process that we call our trademark Cropwalk Audit. I know you had Charlie on, Charlie McKenzie on, talking about that a couple months ago. It's really, it's his brainchild that we have added to. I mentioned in the beginning that, you know, we were kind of sick of seeing these cookie cutter approaches to IPM, and high value crops kind of deserve a bit more than that, we think, so that growers don't have to face these crisis modes. So the audit is really a deep dive under the hood of an operation where we request all of the SOPs and maps of the facility, and more, lots of answers to lots of questions from growers before we step foot onto their facility. Then we spend 2 to 3 days there, usually 2 auditors, collecting video, audio data. We're auditing not just the plants, but the people, the property, the processes, the tools, the you know, the strengths, the weaknesses, and the opportunities, really all of it. It's so that we understand all of the different variables that influence the outcome of an IPM plan. So the product of that is a risk assessment, like you were asking for. That you're thinking of this image that's a scorecard where we have 10 areas that we provide scores on, and that the deliverable for our audit is a audit action report. So it's a list of all the different risks we've found, which is usually like, you know, about 100 or so, even for the tightest operation, risks and threats, and we differentiate between the two, and how to mitigate them. And so we not just have all of the different risks and threats and how to mitigate them, but also how you can take that advice and insert it into your IPM plan. Because, you know, we would like for you to not have to continue to work with us. We'd love to just audit an operator and then be able to give them this deliverable and have them take it from there and run. That's kind of the idea with it, is that we're not just auditing and finding the risks, identifying them, and providing solutions and mitigation actions, but also it's ways to input that into their IPM plan. If they want to keep working with us after that, we're really, really well positioned to customize things to the level that, you know, that we spoke about here today. Really providing all of those sections and that level of details only possible after we spend, you know, a collective 150 or so hours just thinking about nothing but how you're doing things. Did that answer the question, or did I just digress there? Oh, let me show you I can show you the document. 1 second.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking of.
All right, so what you can see here, whoever's looking at home, the different sections here that you
on your right side a little bit, if you can.
Right, so the different sections are biocontrol, supply chain management, IPM planning, facility infrastructure and layout, environmental controls, plant production process, sanitation protocols, IPM team organization and training, scouting and monitoring, pest control effectiveness and efficiency, and record keeping. And it's into those 10 sections that we break down our audit action report, and we provide risk mitigation advice and ways to input that advice into an IPM plan. And then at cropwalk.ag, we've got this really nifty little service circle. If you want to keep working with us after that, we can go into IPM program development and really develop these customized programs for your IPM plan. From there, we can get on site and train people, because that's kind of you know, the best plan in the world is only as effective as the team that's carrying it out, right? So that's where the training comes into place, and we could do that on site, or we offer remote training possibilities. Myself and another one of our team members are both university educators. So, you know, we have experience putting together useful educational material and communicating to different audiences. We've got a great team. I'm real proud of our team, if you can't notice. I don't like these hard selling type of videos, but it's fun to provide information that hopefully this is all useful to folks, whether you're interested in Cropwalk services or not, you know?
So just, it's not to summarize, but just maybe to make it clear, is like the audit is the first step, and all what you explained since the beginning, like the deeper IPM program that you are building at Cropwalk, is the second part, right?
Right. To go backwards a little bit. Yep. It would be the first step is an audit, and then a customized IPM program, and then some training. And then from there, the different types of relationships go in different directions.
Yes, and like every communication highlights some needs or whatever, and then you provide like the solution or the training or whatever to improve the. But I like the way to do it with the audit, just to highlight the strengths and weaknesses, to know where to start.
Pose the question again to me, Sebastian.
I like the way you start with the audit, because it highlights the strengths and weaknesses, and then you know where to start to be very efficient and get immediate results on the facility, right?
Right.
So that's
good.
So yeah, that was great to have you. I don't know if you want to add something else on the services and the way you build IPM plans.
Let's see what I was thinking here. Well, no, I think we kind of touched on most of what you wanted to get through, some of how we put together the IPM plans. I think an important final takeaway might be that, you know, we understand that brings us full circle to what you were mentioning in the beginning, that really we understand that the grower's time is valuable. So the idea here is really about risk mitigation. It's about operational resiliency and trying to save time and save money in the long run, and just staying ahead of the curve, ahead of the problems that are inevitably going to arise if you're not on top of them. So, you know, we try and provide that at a level that we've not seen offered anywhere else. And that's about it. We're honored for the people we get to work with. It's been mostly cannabis and hemp, about 60% so far. We work with some floriculture, lots of leafy greens as well. We're prepared to work with soft berry growers, from field crops to completely environmental, you know, complete CEA, controlled environment ag situations.
Yeah, and even geographically in the US, you are covering the whole country from both sides, right? You are in California, and Charlie is in North Carolina, I guess.
Georgia.
So Georgia, yeah. So then you're covering most of the country like this. That's great.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, we're working with folks really in all corners of the country right now. So, you know, as far as the travel goes, it's like that first engagement's important, that we get onto the farm and see how things are going for the audit. We've thought about ways to offer the audit service remotely, even how to train growers to audit themselves, which is going to be very valuable. But for right now, the most effective way is still for us to get some boots on the ground.
Yeah, like meeting the people and the team in person, you get a real feeling of what's happening in the facility and how it works, and that's the best way to do it. Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah, our audit action report, you know, it often contains sections at the end that are well outside the scope of typical IPM. like human resources. I mean, we've spoken with all of the managers at this point. If there's obstacles in the communication, we've identified them. And so the report has to be as candid as you know, like if there's communication barriers, there's a human resources section. If there's waste that we see, we have a lean farming section where we'll talk about some lean farming techniques they can employ to, you know, save time or money.
But does it sometimes happen that you got to talk about things that people doesn't want to hear about, or?
Every time. I mean, can you imagine paying somebody to get a report to tell you everything that could possibly go wrong for you? I mean, you don't really want to hear about any of it, but but you kind of have to, right? So
yeah, it's any way to get better. So
right, that's it. You know, we understand what Kaizen is. We try and employ the principles of Kaizen, not just in what we're doing, but in what we're delivering to our clients as well. So even these reports and the IPM plan itself, all of this is trying to help assess where we are each step of the way, and the plans themselves are formatted in a way that they can be expanded upon and further developed as, you know, as the growers learn about how it is they're employing them and what's working for them and what isn't, you know. So that's embodied in the spirit of all of this. It's constant improvement.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think that's really great, and this discussion was full of insights for growers and for greenhouse managers. And thank you very much for accepting to participate to the interview and being the guest today. If somebody wants to reach you, I know you are a lot on LinkedIn, so that's mainly the best way to reach out with you.
Yeah, but, that's definitely where you'll see the most content, the most activity. But if somebody just wants that good old-fashioned email, it's robert@cropwalk.ag, CROPWALK.AG.
Yeah, I will anyway copy it on at the end of the interview on the final screen, so that people will be able to note it and see how it's written.
Yeah, and the websites are cropwalk.ag and croptalkmedia.com. You can always find us there too, the whole team.
Okay, so thank you very much, Robert, and have a great afternoon in California.
Thanks. You too.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.